Hi everyone, I'm David Mash, and today I'd like to give you a brief introduction to the new Korg ARP2600 M module. So this instrument is a 60% size reduction of the ARP2600 full size that Korg released in January of 2020. And that instrument was in turn a faithful reproduction of the original ARP2600, which was designed by Alan R. Perlman and his team at ARP Instruments, a company founded by Alan Perlman and David Friend. The ARP2600 was released in the early 1970s and was one of the very first synthesizers to be internally pre-wired for most of the kinds of sounds that you would normally want to make with a synthesizer, so that you could configure sounds pretty creatively without the use for any patch cords. But because it had patch points on most of the modules, you could override the pre-configurations with whatever things you wanted to patch together, and it made for a very, very powerful and creative instrument, a kind of a semi-modular style instrument. So for those of you who know the 2600, you'll probably be asking yourself, is this new smaller unit have the same sound and features as the original 2600? Does it have all the same modules, etc.? Well, this instrument has the same exact electronics that are in the Korg ARP2600 full size. They're just scaled down in size. As to the sound and functionality, I hope that this demonstration will allow you to answer some of those questions yourself. For me, as a user of the original ARP2600, I find this instrument to be a very faithful reproduction of the sound and functionality of the original. But we'll do a little demo here so you can find out more. But for those of you who are new to the 2600, I'll give you a brief overview of the instrument. So it has 3 voltage-controlled oscillators, or VCOs, 1, 2, and 3. It has a voltage-controlled filter here, a VCF. It has a voltage-controlled amplifier, a VCA. It has 2 envelope generators, a full ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, release, and also a simpler one, an attack, release envelope generator. Then it has a mixer and a reverb unit, and it also has noise generator, has some voltage processors, a sample and hold circuit, an electronic switch circuit, which we'll talk about, ring modulator, a preamplifier for bringing external sounds in, and an envelope follower. And we'll talk about what some of these things can do for you. One of the things that made the 2600 such a unique instrument is the intuitive way that the panel is laid out, which is kind of like a block diagram. So you'll notice that on each module you have a block diagram. So you have a VCO1, and it shows you 2 outputs, a square wave and a sawtooth wave. And it has 4 control inputs, keyboard voltage. It has sample and hold, attack, decay, sustain, release, ADSR, and a sine wave from VCO2. These are pre-patched in, and you bring them in simply by raising the slider, and the amount of the slider controls the amount of the control voltage to the VCO. And you can override these internal pre-wiring simply by inserting a patch cord into the jack. You'll notice that in VCO2, I've done that. I've got patch cords into almost all of the inputs here. The VCOs are all slightly different from one another. They have different waveform outputs. VCO1, as I said, has a sawtooth and a square wave. VCO2 has a triangle, sawtooth, sine, and then a pulse width pulse wave whose width is modulatable. And then oscillator 3 has sawtooth and pulse width, which is manually variable. And then your filter has 5 audio inputs, ring modulator, VCOs 1, 2, and 3, and a noise generator. And again, all of these can be overridden. And it has 3 control inputs, keyboard, ADSR, and VCO2 sine wave. There's actually two different types of filters in here. The original filter that was released with the 2600 was a ladder filter designed after the one that was designed by Bob Moog, and that is selectable with this switch here. So that's type 1. Type 2 is the filter that was included in the later versions of the ARP2600, which was a filter that designed originally by the engineers at ARP. As I mentioned before, there's the VCA, voltage controlled amplifier, with two audio inputs, one from the filter pre-wired and one from the ring modulator. And again, these can be overridden. Then you have two control inputs, the attack release envelope in a linear input, and the ADSR in a exponential input. And again, these can be overridden. Then there's two inputs into the mixer, filter and amplifier, and those can be overridden as well. You can see I have overridden that. And then there's the reverberation unit. The reverb in this instrument is a spring reverb, and because of the size reduction, they had to use a different spring unit than the one that was included in the full-size version. And I actually like this one a little bit better. It's a little less springy sounding. So let's listen to it and get an idea of how it sounds and some of the functionality of it. And for this demo, I'm going to use the Korg SQ64 poly sequencer. This sequencer has 4 different sequences. A, B, and C are meant for melodic or chordal sequences, and D is meant for, or the fourth one is meant for a drum sequencer. So I have patched sequence A into the ARP2600 modular using MIDI, and I've just simply connected here this USB cable to the side of the ARP2600, and the 2600 module provides power to the sequencer. So all you need is the single cable, and you've got MIDI connection and power connection. Sequence 2, or B here, I've taken the control voltage and gate and connected that into the 2600 module, and you'll see I can get 2 different sequences playing simultaneously. So first we're going to listen to sequence 1. So in sequence 1, we have 2 oscillators. Oscillators 1 and 3 are patched into the filter here. They're tuned in fifths. And I have the ADSR and a low frequency oscillator controlling the filter. I'm going to just play with the filter settings so you can hear how it sounds. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to take the resonance off. So you can hear it's a very smooth low-pass filter. This is type 1, the ladder filter. And I'm going to bring the cutoff frequency up just a little bit. And now I'm going to take the 2 controllers out of the filter and open the filter up. And now I'm going to increase the resonance until it self-oscillates. And now if I change the frequency, you can hear so it actually operates almost like a third oscillator. Okay, I'm going to bring that down, and now I'm going to bring up the envelope generator. And now I'm going to adjust the attack time. So now it's a quicker attack, and I'll bring down the release time. Nice pizzicato. Now I'm going to bring in the low frequency oscillator, which is coming from my Eurorack system up here. And so that's just going to open and close the filter just slowly over time. So it adds some interest between the ADSR and the low frequency oscillator. I'm going to bring up the reverb so you can hear the sound. You can hear it's quite lush. I'm going to bring it off all the way. Just a touch. Okay, so now I'm going to take the CV and gate from the second sequencer, sequence B. I'm going to patch that into the pitch input for VCO2. And VCO2, I'm taking a pulse wave out, and I'm taking it down here. I'll explain what I'm doing with that a little later. But I'm modulating the pulse width with the same low frequency oscillator that I was using to control the filter. And I'm doing that through a multi that I have up here in my Eurorack system. So you can see how very easy it is to integrate with other modules from other instruments. But right now, all the sound that we're hearing is coming just from the 2600. So I'm going to bring up the bass sound, which is... So this is VCO2 playing this sound with pulse width modulation. And now what I'm going to do is, using the lag processor, I'm going to turn the lag processor into a kind of low-pass filter. So I've got a little, the bass line is a little more bassy now. Okay, so I have two independent parts going. And now I'd like to have a little percussive part. So what I'm doing next is I'm going to take the output from the noise generator, and I'm going to plug it into the ring modulator. I'm going to take the gate voltage, the gate signal from the sequencer, and I'm going to put that into the other input of the ring modulator. So what that does is, because the gate voltage is simply a spike up and down, a very short spike, it actually just turns on the noise with each step of the gate. It kind of acts like a very rudimentary VCA or amplifier. But I don't want it to be pulsed on every step. You know, I don't want that fast. I want it to be halftime. So what I do then is I take the output from the ring modulator here, and I take it down to the electronic switch. So the electronic switch has two inputs and one output. And that output is the alternating between the two inputs at the rate of the clock, the internal clock, or an external clock that's patched in. And I have the external clock patched in from the gate of the sequencer. So what this means is, since I only have one input of the two connected, what we're going to hear is every other click of the gate. And that is going to give me kind of a halftime pulse. So here's what we're going to hear. So you can see that I'm actually doing some mixing here of the two sounds using the voltage processors, which is one of the great things about this instrument, is you can use things for different purposes just by patching into them. So I've patched two different inputs in, both audio inputs. I've taken one output and I've brought it into the mixer. So that is the bass line and the percussion part. So next thing I can do is, since I have 3 different musical parts going on here, I can use another synthesizer to play a melody on top. So now you might be asking yourself, well, how easy is it to go in and manipulate things, given that this is a much smaller version of the original 2600? So you can see my hands are pretty big, my fingers are fat, and you can see kind of in relationship how it's very easy to get around on the face of the instrument. So I'm just going to start making some sound changes by opening the filter and such, so you can see how easy it is to get around and still get your hands on the sound. Maybe take some sample and hold into the first oscillator. So we have 3 independent musical parts going on in the same single synthesizer that we normally think of as a monophonic instrument, but it's certainly got more than one voice happening at this time. So I'm going to do a little fade out. So there you have an overview of the new ARP2600 module, which is a 60% reduction in size, but not in sound or functionality. Still has the great sound and features of the original ARP2600. I hope that you got a chance to hear that from this demo. It's a very powerful synthesizer in a new portable format. Easy to integrate into a larger electronic music system, and very easy to understand, easy to use, and fun to play. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and if you like this, please visit my website, mashine.com. It's a play on my name, David Mash, Mashine, like machine music, and on my website, I have more videos. You can hear some of my music that I make under the name Machine Music, which is also available on Spotify and Apple Music and most places where you can get your digital streams and downloads. And I hope you'll check out my music. Hope you like it. And I'll be making some more of these videos about the ARP2600 and delving a little deeper into some of the more esoteric things that, like what I was doing today. Okay. Take care and be safe.